Chapter 5, Resourceful Q&A. Bev, this chapter begins with a description of a single mum, you, taking a flight with screaming baby. Now, we've all seen this scenario so many times. I'm sure I've probably been one of those horrible tutting bystanders as well. And you mentioned that this is where you really need to draw on your resourcefulness. Is that something we all have?
Absolutely. We don't all tap into it or utilize it or know how to manifest it in the moment, but certainly, of course, we all have resources.
And how will that serve us, having resourcefulness?
It enables us to cope and to overcome and to deal with situations that feel threatening or overwhelming. We draw on that which supports us internally. That is our resource. That's the resourcefulness I'm talking about.
So are you suggesting that in moments of crisis, we can actually rely on ourselves to pull through?
Absolutely. On a personal level of how I am going to cope with this, how I'm going to handle it, yes. Is that always the case? Practically, no. Sometimes we'll need someone else to pull us out of a hole or to pull us to safety or to help us with this or help us with that or support us in the moment. Absolutely, we'll need that sometimes. But the actual coping and surviving of any kind of challenging or scary or overwhelming experience is dependent on how deep our resource pool goes and how we are able to access it.
And surely by doing that, we teach our children to do the same.
Absolutely. Instead of getting into drama and I can't cope and this is too terrible, no, what am I going to do? We operate from a place of I have the resources to cope with this. I am supported. I am supporting myself through this, no matter how scary or off-center it feels. If I breathe and I center and I think long term, how will I wish I had handled this? How will I wish this would have played out? And I draw on my internal ability to cope, to handle that moment with the best preserved dignity for my child or anybody I'm around, or my best preserved dignity. That will be operating from a place of incredible resourcefulness.
What are some of the thoughts that might help somebody in that situation to calm down? I'm thinking of a classic scenario, grocery shopping. You see mothers battling with toddlers in the chair, screaming, etc., etc. What are some of the thoughts that could help a mum or dad in those times?
Humour, I think, is outstanding. I remember hearing a joke, which I'll tell you very briefly, of a man walking through and he's shopping with his 3-year-old and he keeps saying to himself, it's okay, Michael, we're almost going to be home. Okay, Michael, it's almost going to be over. And a woman passes him several times and she hears him going on with this and lands up behind him in the line. And then he's still saying, Michael, it's almost over. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine, Michael. Just hang in there. It's almost done. And she says, I think you are absolutely amazing. And he says, why? She said, because the way you're speaking to him so gently and encouraging him and telling him that it's almost going to be over. It's so fantastic. He says, no, I'm Michael. So I think humour is a fantastic resource.
That's a lovely story.
And I have certainly used it a fortune. And I often ask myself the question, what's funny about this? What's ridiculous about this? What story would I tell about this? And then I want to have the right ending come up. And so I can draw and breathe. I just breathe it. Okay, we're going to survive this. We're going to get through this. And let's make certain the ending is how we would wish it would be. And the dignity is preserved. Like on the flight that I took with my son I describe, it is just so clear to me that I could have handled it in so many different ways, but I was clear the whole time that these people would not be part of our consciousness and our world and our lives after this flight. And if I was going to be more concerned about their discomfort than his discomfort and preserving him and loving him and supporting him in the process, whatever it took for me to draw on, whatever resource I had to find inside of myself to cope, I had to do that work so that he came through that experience preserved. That was paramount for me.
So you bring up a good point about other people's discomfort. Isn't the other thing at play worrying about what others think of us in that moment, and I guess trying to please others?
That's the danger of being too reflective of your value and your worthiness coming from other people. If you don't have a very well constituted sense of your own self and you don't develop that in your children, they will do exactly the same as you do. They will look to other people to make them feel valuable, honorable, special, worthy, capable, etc. And if they do that, oh my goodness, you're setting up a loop there where affirmation is constantly needed. Reflection is constantly needed, but there's no ability to center yourself no matter what's going on around you, and therefore people get into very big dramas and they don't manage their lives in a healthy, assertive way so that they can live consciously and find their way through every event that happens and every challenge that happens, preserving their dignity and the dignity of the people around them. And for example, on that flight, there are all those people around. Yes, they were uncomfortable. Yes, there was a lot of frustration amongst them, but what were they doing to preserve our dignity in the moment? They weren't. They were also coming from a place of lacking compassion and not understanding the humility and the grace of the process, and not understanding that I was doing everything I possibly could. It was not my intention to make them uncomfortable, nor is it anyone else's intention to make people uncomfortable when their child is screaming, but it is what it is. And so let's all breathe and share some compassion and grace for a moment and give each other the space to be in process. And possibly he may have calmed, but there was so much aggression coming our way because of their need for me to make them more comfortable. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. You have to be able to make you cope. You have to be able to make you comfortable. And if you can't source that yourself, you're in trouble. And if you're going to teach that to your children, they follow suit and they will be in trouble because they will constantly look outwards for their sense of being and coping mechanisms. Very dangerous.
So are you saying that we shouldn't ask for help outside of ourselves, or is it just picking the appropriate times?
I'm saying that there's often times where we need support, help, assistance, guidance, etc., mentorship, whatever it is, from outside, yay. But in the moment, we have to be able to say, what is inside of me that can help me get through this in this moment? I don't have time to phone a mentor. I don't have time to get coaching. I don't have time to put this to a panel of people. I'm here. I'm dealing with this. This is happening to me. And can I find the resource inside to say, I will survive this? Because whether I go through a horrific experience and maybe something like a tsunami, and maybe I go through a terrible event in that tsunami and I lose an arm, am I going to be less valuable because of it? Or does my internal resource remain that I am capable and confident because of that, and I am lovable and worthy of love? And I can therefore be contained and still retain my internal resources regardless of what happens to me or around me. That's the resourcefulness I'm talking about, the knowing that your resource is full.
Thank you, Bev. We'll be back for chapter 6. I have to say now you've made me want to sing I Will Survive.
Great.